Welcome to the Shared Practices podcast. We are doing a season on growth, but we're taking a little pause from that just to capture some stories, some journeys. And we have the unique privilege today of talking with Dr. Scott Smith. Dr. Smith, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, George. Not George. Richard.
The best part of all this is that Scott and I roomed on like the same floor freshman year, Deseret Towers, Hall Q, floor 3, Q3. That was like our call sign. Right. So Scott and I's relationship goes way back to the point where like he knows me better than he knows George. He doesn't know George. So I love it. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Well, ironically, when we were freshmen together in undergrad, we didn't. Neither of us like wanted to be a dentist at that point. Is that correct?
No. Yeah, I met you when I literally just turned 18. So that was 16 years ago. And I didn't know I was going to be a dentist until I was 23.
And I was about the same. I was like 21. It was right as I was coming off my mission. I went to LA for 2 years and did a mission trip there. And there was a bunch of USC dental students in one of the congregations in one of the wards that we went to. And they would have me over for dinner. And one of them was an Army scholarship recipient going to dental school at USC. And he said, you should do dentistry and you should get the Army to pay for it. And I was like, oh, this sounds like a good idea. And I did a humanitarian trip later to Guatemala, and that kind of like sealed the deal for me. I was like, okay, this is the thing. This is what we're going to do. So what was the trigger point for you? I mean, we were kind of talking at that point, right?
Yeah, no. So you and Todd Haskins both had applied, and I think both of you had gotten accepted to dental school. And then when I would talk to you guys, I remember you guys talking about how awesome it was. And I was still, that was at the 08 business crash, like everything was going crazy. And so I didn't really and I got a business degree. So I had no idea I was going in the healthcare field. I actually had to stay to college. I had to stay at BYU for an extra year to take all the science classes.
So, okay. I was wondering if you'd graduated or not when you'd made that decision. So you were still there.
I was a senior.
Okay.
I was a senior. I was about to finish my business degree. And then you and Todd were doing dental. And then I remember talking to you guys and telling me how awesome it was. And you work 4 days a week and you can make good money and live wherever you want. So I was like, okay, sign me up. So nice. Here I am.
Nice. So I will say some more, I promise we'll get into the episode, listeners here. There is one story that when I think of Scott Smith, this is what pops into my head, which was a discussion that we were having in the bathroom. There was like one bathroom on the floor of Q3 that we all had to use. And you were in the next stall over, and we were both sitting there going to the bathroom. And you asked me, how do you know if you've wiped well enough?
What?
And I was like, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that before. And you're like, yeah, man, you got to check because you just don't know. And he's like, so you just got to keep going until it comes up clean. And I was like, maybe you're right. And so you have changed my daily habits for the rest of my life. I am both a more diligent and a more frequent checker. Yeah. I don't know if you knew that.
I don't remember that even the slightest, but I can't believe I actually remember that.
Yeah, so. No, it stuck with me. And every time, yeah, it's part of my daily life now. So thank you.
So you changed my life for the better. I feel like if that was my one contribution to you, then fair enough.
That's for the better too. I feel like I'm a cleaner person because of you. So,
okay.
I also loved what your wife said before getting on this call. So, and I apologize once again to our audience. You have to listen to some of this stuff. If I'm going to have a friend on the show, we're going to BS a little bit more than average on an episode. Was your wife excited about this?
No. So when Richard asked me if I would do an interview, I said, of course. I said, yes, anything for you, man. You've changed my life for the better. And I told my wife, I was like, I'm gonna do this interview for that podcast I always listen to. And she was like, you can't be on that podcast. You don't have enough charisma. I was like, it's a podcast for dentists who are literally the most boring people on the whole planet. And I don't know how many listeners you have, but it's not like I'm going to be on the news. So
it's true. Dental podcast famous is not a thing. So you're
how many times are you recognized when you go down the street, Richard?
0. Yeah. 0. So No, you have plenty of charisma, and this is gonna be awesome. So let's go next step. So where'd you go to dental school again?
I'm from North Carolina. I met Richard out at BYU in Utah, but after college, I went back to North Carolina and went to ECU, which is East Carolina University, and they
Okay.
only accept North Carolina residents. So I was
Oh
very
wow.
lucky because they charge a lot less in tuition and stuff. Like when I finished dental school, I took out the full amount of loans. I didn't have a job. I didn't have any money saved up, and I think I ended up with 175,000.
I
And
think
I
that
didn't
is
have any
the
help from my
cheapest.
parents, like anything like that.
That is the cheapest I've heard of someone getting out of dental school in the last like 5 years or 10 years. So that's phenomenal. 175. If you can get under 200 coming out of dental school, and a lot of people with a state school, and state schools are the only way you can get under 200. Um, a lot of people like have to do something extra to stay under 200. And it sounds like you took out everything. You didn't have a job, you didn't have help, and you were
Yeah.
able to stay under 200.
Yeah. And I had one kid, and then I had a second one my junior year. So, I mean, it's not like we were living cheap, and I'm married. So, I mean, yeah, we weren't living cheap.
Okay, cool. Uh, so then you graduate from dental school, and where did you work? Did you work there in North Carolina or?
Yeah. So I live currently really close to Charlotte, North Carolina. And or I worked in a small little town, real country, real redneck, North Carolina, Southern. Pulled a lot of teeth, saw Medicaid. It was really kind of high volume practice. Um, I just worked for a friend, actually. He graduated a couple years before me. I met him in dental school. He ended up getting me to join with him. It's a great opportunity.
Cool,
So I worked with him for about a year and a half before I bought my practice.
nice. And then what was the moment for you where you're like, you know what, let's do this practice ownership thing?
So I don't know if I called you or you called me, but we were talking 6 months. So I graduated in May 2017. And then Christmas of 2017, I'd been working as an associate for 6 months. And for whatever reason, I can't remember. It's not like we talk on the phone all the time, but
No,
for
we
whatever
literally
reason,
hadn't talked in like 5 years at that point. Yeah.
well, no, I actually tried joining the military because of you.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So I went through MEPS. I did everything, man. And they
You
denied
went
me
through
because
MEPS. If you
I
went
did.
through MEPS, that was an honest try. Yeah.
No, I did. I did everything I could. And they denied me because I
Oh,
had surgery on my shoulder. But
dang.
it ended up being like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Even though like at the time I was really bummed.
Right.
But it ended up being okay. But that was the time. But before then, I talked to you about that because I got
Mm.
denied, and I was basically trying to do what you were doing. So basically, my whole career, I've basically just been trying to do what Richard does because
Which I
you
don't know if that's
succeed.
advisable. I don't
No,
know.
it is. No, man. I remember I also took the DAT. This is just a anecdote, but I took the DAT, and I studied everything that Richard told me to study. And at the time, honestly, like I remember as a freshman, I don't know if you were like a math major, econ, or something like that.
Econ.
I remember you taking math classes, like super hard calculus. And I remember you just being the worst student. Like I remember you would watch movies all night instead of studying, and then you'd be freaking out. And then you're just such a different person than you were in college. Like
No, I'm the same person. You don't understand. Like I need
whatever.
I need deadlines. I still procrastinate. I'm still a little bit of a mess. I still like binge and purge video games. Like it's uh, maybe a little better, but pretty much the same person.
Well, I'm very impressed with how well you've done for the kind of student that you were when you were 18.
I, I
Anyway,
did I did fail 3 classes before I decided I want to be a dentist, and then I had to
see,
retake all of those.
I totally believe that. I
Yeah.
totally believe that. That's the Richard that I feel like I met. That's the way you
Mhm.
were when I met you. But then you ended up freaking crushing the DAT. Like you got like a 27, didn't you? Something like
I
that.
did. Yeah.
Dude, something crazy, ridiculous. Like you were teaching other kids how to do the DAT. And so I just did what you did. I took it once, got a 23, which I was like
That's awesome.
super enthralled. I was like, yes. I remember texting you or calling you and be like, dude, thank you for helping me do so well in the DAT. I got into dental school the first try because of you.
Nice.
And then, so I called you back to the original story. I called you at that Christmas time when I was an associate. And at the time I knew I'd seen on Facebook that you'd start this podcast. And at that time, I think you were just by yourself. I don't think George was even on yet.
You're right. Yeah.
And I remember you were like, dude, you need to get into ownership and you need to listen to my podcast. And I was just like, man, this podcast is going to suck. It's about dentistry. Like I didn't even know what a podcast was at the time. I'd
Yeah.
never listened to one. It took me a week to figure out how to get a podcast player on my phone. And so finally I just listened to you because I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna try this out and just kind of see how bad it is. And I couldn't stop listening. Honestly, like I binged every episode you had, and I was just like, this is incredible. And I remember calling Todd Haskins, who, I mean, he's part of the shared practice community if anybody wants to reach out to him. But
yeah,
he was, and basically told Todd, I was like, dude, you need to listen to this thing. This thing is incredible. This is amazing. Right. Like,
and he was getting out of the Army. I mean, he was still in at that point. Still had a couple years, I think. They were up in Alaska at that point, probably, maybe.
Well, I've told many of my friends who are dentists that anytime they're talking about ownership, I'm like, you just need to listen to this podcast. This is so, and this is me. I'm not trying to like, you did not pay me to say these things. This is how I honestly feel. Trust me. Thanks, like, man. Shared practices is incredible. Seriously, like the content you had, especially in season 1 and 2, like it really just helps you understand like the difference between an associate and the benefit of being an owner. And I knew I always wanted to be an owner, but I was like, maybe 5 years, 10 years. You know, I was happy in my associateship. I was just trying to learn how to be a dentist. I'd only been out 6 months, and we were doing bread and butter in a high volume. And I think I was making my first year. I mean, I'd cap out somewhere between 200 and 250. So it was a good associateship,
sure.
You know?
Yeah.
But like, and there was no problems. Like we were happy, but it just made me realize like how much more you could do and how much happier you could be by doing it the way you wanted to as an owner.
Okay. So, you listened to the podcast and then you decided, okay, screw this. I can do it. How did you find your practice?
Well, at that point I listened to, it took me a couple months to listen through all of the episodes that you had at first. And then you started getting George on. And at first, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't like George. I was like, this is not Richard. Like, I was biased because I like listening to you. But then once George, I mean, he started talking to Derek Williams, and those episodes were incredible about how like he started having people on about their journey. And you guys, it was amazing because you got them like right when they started.
Yeah.
You know? And so you could see and you could hear the stress and like the anxiety they had. And then you get them on a few months later or a year later, I can't remember. And you hear it and to see how much they changed and how successful they were doing. And honestly, man, George is incredible now. I mean, I love listening to both of you, honestly.
Yeah. I got so lucky that like he happened to have stepped in and that he took this journey from being someone who, you know, at the beginning was not confident on air, was not interested in entertaining people. He wanted like a podcast to be as dense and like he only listened to podcasts with a notepad out. Like if he was going to listen to a podcast, he had a notepad out. He was at his computer. He was not doing anything else.
He was writing down.
He was writing stuff down. So if they BS'd for 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of the episode, like we did today, he was mad. Like he was like, what the heck? Get to the content. I am listening. Yeah. I am here for value. Deliver me value. And now he has an entire show of just pure dental friends with benefits. Him and Ashley Hovez, like all it is them just talking about anything and everything. So he's the CEO of Shared Practices and brilliant and very grateful that it worked out the way it did.
Yeah, it's totally different hearing him talk and you as well. I mean, just it's amazing as a listener to be able to hear you guys and see like how you guys have changed over the last even couple of years, man. You guys are so different because in the beginning, you and Richard, I mean, and George were like, like kids. It's like you didn't really know, and you were always asking questions because you guys didn't know either, you know. Yeah. And it was like you were trying to gain the information, and now you guys can talk as experts. It seems like so. It's pretty cool.
No, and that's been a shift for us too, because at the beginning it was nice because I had imposter syndrome of like, who am I to, like you were saying, this is going to suck. This is gonna be a crappy podcast. Who am I to talk about practice ownership when I'm still stuck in the Army for another 5 years? So to have been able to just say, well, I'm trying to ask these questions for myself. And if anyone else is interested, then maybe they'll benefit and I'll learn along the way. And in worst case scenario, we'll just delete the whole thing and all have learned from it. So
going back to your original question though, like how did I find my practice? So I the first thing I did was I just looked on Dental Town. I looked on, I just Googled literally any dental brokerage I could find in North Carolina. And then there are just different, like the ADA, North Carolina has a dental society. All of them have these listings. I didn't want to do the whole George contact every dentist on North Carolina kind of
Right.
thing. I thought that's a great idea, but like
A lot of work.
in it's a lot of work, and also I just wanted to see what was out there first. Um, and honestly, like also what at the time George and them were they were really pushing. He has a totally different mindset now, but at the time he was pushing lean and mean. Um, like Derek Williams, like
Yep.
you buy something that already cash flows really well. Like I
Small
didn't want to do a
practice, low
startup.
overhead. Yeah.
Yeah, low overhead, high income potential, and that they're already buy the biggest practices you can get that you can actually take care for, or like take over and handle.
Right.
And I didn't do a residency. I was 30. I was 31 when I graduated, so I really didn't want to I didn't want to do what you're doing, man. Like honestly, like that's another thing is Richard, you as a dentist, me and you don't have the same career. Like you professionally, you go at work, you do all these procedures that I don't do. Like
Right.
honestly, I'm very good at extractions because I do them all day, every day. I hate fillings, but I do them all day, every day. I do lots of partials, cast metal, dentures. Yeah, but honestly, if I could be a prison dentist and just pull teeth on dudes and then just be happy. That's what I want to do all day, every day. If I could work in an emergency clinic, I'd be like, heck yeah. I mean, I'll just pull teeth. It'd be awesome. And that's what my practice is really similar to. So my associateship was in a small town about 30 minutes outside of Charlotte. So I really didn't want to move away from Charlotte if I didn't have to. And I was willing. I remember listening to, I can't remember the name, but I remember listening to one of your episodes about a guy who was driving an hour to go to a practice, but he was killing it. And I was like, well, okay. Well, I mean, I feel like I could probably do that. Like commuting is not that big a deal. I only work 4 days a week. If my wife's happy where we're at, like I could probably make that work. So I looked an hour away from Charlotte, pretty much. And then it just so happened that there, on one of these brokerages, there was a practice that was out in the middle of nowhere, about an hour north of Charlotte. It was actually a younger guy, probably in his 40s, and he was killing it. Like on his balance sheet, whatever like that they give you, they said that he was making, I mean, after all the expenses and everything, he was making somewhere around 600 take home.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, let me look at this. And it had been on the market for a few months in North Carolina, at least. I don't know what it's like everywhere else, but like if you get a practice that cash flows, it's gone so fast. Yes. Yeah. I'd already talked to, I'd already looked at lots of different practices, and any practice I ever looked at, it was gone before I could even make an offer. Cause like, it was just like, they just were going like hotcakes, seriously, unless it was terrible, unless it was like this tiny little startup or something like that. And so I was like, well, how is this cash flow so high and nobody is jumping on it? Cause it'd be in a few months. And so I went up there, I met the seller, met the broker. It was exactly an hour away from where I live, but it was in the middle of Podunk, North Carolina, middle of nowhere. And I think honestly, that's what it is. I think no one was willing to go up there because it's in the middle of nowhere.
Was Charlotte the closest like big city to it? Like there really is no other.
Charlotte, there's no other. No, the next biggest city is probably 2 hours away. Charlotte's the biggest city. And I I don't actually live in Charlotte. I live 30 minutes north of Charlotte in a town called Huntersville. So it's an hour from me. So if you lived in Charlotte, it's probably like an hour and a half. And so I think that's really what it was, is that everybody wants to live in Charlotte. Everyone wants to live in the city. No one wanted to live up there. That's the best idea that I could think of, because this thing was killing it. It was doing awesome. And it's very bread and butter. I mean, the guy, he would do specialty procedures, but it was not like I think the average income it's a town called Taylorsville. The average income of a household, I think, is like 20 grand or something like that. It's really poor. He was seeing Medicaid. It used to be a 2-doc practice, but then he ended up dropping Medicaid for a while, and he went down just to himself. Because I think he just didn't want to deal with the associateship, didn't want to deal with Medicaid, just got more lean and mean pretty much.
Was he on Dental Town at all?
Was his practice, or was he? Or I'm not sure your question.
As a person,
I'm not sure. I'm not.
I remember there was a practice that popped up on Dental Town. It was actually an associateship position where an associate was leaving and was saying like, hey, if anyone wants to come live in Podunk, North Carolina, there's this 300,000, like he was taking home 200, 300,000 as an associate. Just incredible associateship. but it's just so rural. It's really hard for the guy to find a replacement for me. And I'm worried. I'm leaving. I feel bad. I'm worried that he's not going to be able to replace me at all. So it might be a coincidence, but I don't think
the
he knew.
associateship,
But the associate was the one posting.
the associateship and him, when they left, they actually left on bad terms.
Oh, okay.
The guy was actually super shady. I didn't know this until I actually bought the practice.
The associate or the seller?
The seller. The associateship's awesome. The associate is awesome.
Okay.
He's great. I still talk to him. He's a great guy.
Okay, cool.
But he ended up buying, whatever. His associate left, and the owner ended up being super shady, and very private. Like the whole situation about buying this practice was just like, he wouldn't allow me to talk to the staff. He didn't want me to know anything about his personal life. He lied to me about why he was leaving. I still don't know why he sold. Like, honestly, I don't know why. Like, he still lives there. He practices an hour away. Yeah, he still lives in the town. Yeah.
What?
And when I got there, like I had to redo tons of stuff, tons of stuff. Like, and I'm not like this, like super picky specialty dentist where like, you know, like if somebody has a failed implant, that I can fix it. You know, I'm not gonna be able to do that.
Right.
So, and I'd only been on a year and a half when I bought the practice. And so I don't know, it was just a bad situation that I was getting into, but I had no clue.
Did you have any, so it's like the numbers looked good. The communication might've been a little weird. Did you have any other indicators that like, this might be weird once I get into it?
No idea. And okay. I've never bought a practice in this thing. So it cashed. So he was trying to sell it for 1.3. I ended up buying it for $1 million flat.
Okay. Did you have a hard time getting lending on that?
No.
Okay.
I could get lending, but no one was willing to lend me the full $1 million. So because they looked at my associateship and they said, okay, he can produce. I was producing as an associate. My own production was between 600 and 700. So it wasn't enough to cover what he was doing. Because I think his last year, I think he did 1.3, like right before I bought it. And so they look at me and they said, you know, we're willing to lend you, but the seller has to take a big note. So finally, BB&T, they gave me 900 and they made the seller take out 100. And that was the best anybody offered me. A lot of like Bank of America, they wanted him to take a 500 note and the bank to do a 500 note. Whoa. And he was not willing to do that. Yeah. No. So I was like, I just went with BB&T. And it ended up working out.
How did you go from 1.3 to 1?
So it'd been on the market for a while. And I think he was really interested. The same week that he sold my practice, he didn't tell me any of this, but he actually bought a practice in Charlotte the same week. And so he couldn't buy his practice that he bought until he sold his existing one. I think he was pretty desperate. And so he was, at that point, I think if I would have offered even less, I think he would have taken it, but I didn't know that. So,
well, I mean, but you got one instead of 1.3. And we usually tell people, you know, if the practice is worth it, if it cash flows, you know, I wouldn't go in negotiating hard. So the fact that you got, you know, $300K off, that's great.
Yeah. So, it was cash flowing 1.3, but it had been declining because he lost an associate. So it used to do 1.7, but that was with 2 docs. Okay. And so when he went down to 1, then he was cash flowing 1.3. And then I think that was also, the banks were like, this isn't worth 1.3. That's 100%. And the revenues are declining. So once the banks started telling him that, he was like, okay, I just need to get what I can get out of this. Okay. And I think he just felt good about $1 million. I don't know.
No. And I will say that a good way to negotiate on a practice like this, where it's kind of trending the wrong direction, is just try and go get lending. And then the banks come back and they're like,
yeah, exactly.
We don't want to do it.
So, I mean, you can only buy a practice unless you have tons of cash yourself. Like, you can only buy it for whatever the bank will give you, you know, and the bank was only willing to give me $1 million, and that's with him carrying 100,000. So I think once he realized that, he thought he was, yeah. Now, part of it is also the broker, you know, the seller's agent, he wanted it more. He wanted it 1.3 because he gets a good big cut of it. And that guy was super shady too. Like, honestly, that guy it's like he was just greasy. His fingers were just covered in grease. Like, you talk to him and it's just like, he's like a Disney villain, literally, like just grease coming out of his mouth every time he talks. It's just like, ugh. And you know, he would say anything to get you to buy it. And so it became apparent very quickly that he did not care about you. All he wanted was to sell it, and he wanted to sell it as high as he could.
as quickly
So,
as possible. Yeah.
and as quickly as possible. Yeah.
So you're entering into this deal with some interesting characters. And you don't know fully the implications of it at this point. When did you close? What was your like official close date?
So the first time I saw the practice was probably in like May, and I went up there and met him, and then we actually closed beginning of November, same year of 2018.
Made
So it took a
made
few months to get lending, took a few months to get it evaluated, and then also I had cold feet. Just it was just scary. It was super. I remember the last couple of weeks before I quit my associateship and bought the practice. I would go to work and I was just like feel like I had to puke all the time. Like I just super scared. I was like, I've never owned a business. Like I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up the cash flow that he was like doing already, because it was a high flying cash flow office. It was 1.3. I'd only ever done 600, 700 by myself,
right.
and the guy did implants. He did molar endo. Like he would do anything. Like if a patient was willing, he would try. Didn't mean that he'd always do a good job, but he'd always try, you know what I'm saying? And so I was just like, I don't do molar endo. Like
Yeah.
I did one in dental school and it was awful. And I was like, I'm never freaking doing this again.
Right.
Like screw this. Like, and so I was just, and I was going to be driving an hour away. So I was
Right.
like, what if I hate my commute? What if my wife is pissed that I did this? What if I'm just like super busy all the time? And I don't know, just every bad thing you could think of. It was super scary. It's just really scary. Even though like I was super pumped, like all I could think about was like, I need to get into ownership because of you guys. Like seriously, shared practice made it and instilled in me. Like I would wake up every day, literally from January when I started listening to your podcast until I bought the practice. Every day I thought I need to get into ownership every day. And it became almost an obsession, seriously. And so but when it got really close, it was super scary.
Okay, so tell me about like close and like the first day because you couldn't meet the team before you'd closed on it.
Yeah, and he didn't tell the team.
So it was one of those, hey, guess what? Here's your new boss type situations.
So he blocked off 2 hours of a normal workday. I think it was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and I came in. We walked into the break room. There were 6 ladies there, and actually, we had 6 employees. And he was like, okay, this is Dr. Smith. He's your new boss. I just sold it to him. He's working for you today. I'm going to be here for the next hour. If you have any questions for me, you need to do anything to transfer this, I'm here. And we went to work. I mean, honestly, I started seeing patients at 10 o'clock. I got there at 8. And all the ladies were just like, what? They had no clue. They had never met me. They didn't. And honestly, they knew the first thing they found out was that my wife is a hygienist. So the hygienist, the first thing they look at me is like, you're going to fire me and you're going to put your wife in here.
Right.
And so the first thing I had to do literally was just calm the fire, be like, I didn't want to change anything.
Right.
I was more worried that they were going to quit because they were scared of me or something like that, like they were worried that I was going to fire them.
Right.
So it was like, we were both just terrified of each other that we were going to lose our jobs. You know what I'm saying?
Just like a terrified standoff.
Yeah, exactly. But the one thing that really helped me, and I knew going in that I didn't want to change anything because it already cash flowed so high. That's another thing that I learned that from you guys was if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I'm saying? And like in the first 6 months, like I didn't really want to change anything because I didn't want to come in there, change it and make it worse. I had to make sure that it's still cash flowed so I could pay my rent and my loan. My loan was like $11,000 a month, and then my rent was $3,500. So I mean, I knew how to big bill to pay before I even stepped in the door. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's pressure, and that feels. I mean, especially you didn't have that big of a student loan payment. Like this is now a huge commitment. That $1 million and the rent and the overhead and all of that, going from making great money as an associate. When did you finally relax? When did you feel like this is going to be okay? Like how long into it was it like, okay, you know what, actually this is working?
Well, what helped me was actually the staff couldn't stand the seller. Like they did not like him. And so it was extremely easy for me to walk in and them to like me. Like, I'm not like saying like they love me. I don't know. I think
we've already
like
prefaced your wife said you don't have a ton of charisma. So we already know that up front. I'm just kidding, man.
I'm just saying I'm not saying that I'm that good of a dentist or I'm that awesome of a guy. I'm more saying that their expectations were so low. It was
So
so easy
low.
to so low. It was so easy to meet it. So number one, all they cared about is they didn't want me to fire them, and I
Right.
didn't fire them, and I didn't want to change anything. So I literally just wanted them to keep doing what they were doing and just literally just take the seller and me and switch us out, but keep doing exactly what we were doing. So they already knew how to do that. They all worked there. They'd all worked there for 10 years. Like these ladies have been there for so long and they've just been miserable for so long and they could not stay in the cellar. And so literally when I just came in as a different face, they all love each other. Like seriously, the staff, the only reason they stayed was because they enjoyed each other.
Mm.
So I got so lucky. I can't express. And I tell my staff all the time that how awesome they are. And just that I got so lucky for them to have been there, you know, and I'm just so blessed that it's ended up as good as it has been. So as I've been there, we just had our 2-year anniversary. So we've been there 2 years now. But I guess to answer your question, when did the stress level go down? Honestly, probably about after a year, you know, like, cause I just didn't know. Yeah. You don't know, cause it really ebbs and flows. I mean, every dentist office, you have busy times, you have slow times. And I didn't know if if patients would start flocking away, or I didn't
Right.
know what would end up happening. But in reality, honestly, man, like, so the very first year, we ended up going from 1.3 to 1.5, right?
Wow.
And I didn't, sorry. The only thing I changed was they were taking an hour and a half lunch every day, which I
Okay.
was like, if I'm going to drive an hour to be up there,
You want to be sitting around
I don't
crafting.
want to be sitting around. I want to work, you know.
Yeah.
Plus, I had so much anxiety and so much pressure that I had these big bills to pay. I was like, if I'm going to be here, let's just do this. Let's work, right? And so I work through. I still do. I work through lunch. Like I work 8 to 5, and I see patients all day. And I just and
Do
my
you eat
staff.
lunch or do you just like sneak in
I
some
eat.
food in between?
Yeah, I just sneak food anytime I can. So
Okay.
like, I only eat lunch. I never schedule lunch. Like it drives me crazy when my staff tries to actually like block off an hour for lunch for me.
Do
Like I
they
don't
kind
care.
of
Like
split shift it? Like
yeah, they all alternate. So they all get an hour.
right.
But they just alternate. So there's always an assistant with me. And there is an hour in the middle of the day where both hygienists take the lunch at the same time.
Hmm.
So I don't really, it's fine. And I've asked them if you guys want to work through lunch and schedule patients, like I'd be happy for them, but they don't. They're like, no, I'd rather take an hour. Then that's fine, whatever. But I have patients all day.
Okay, time for some Facebook reviews of Q Optics. The first one here is a regret. This is someone who wished they could have had Q Optics Loop. They said, don't do, and they said a company name that we won't mention here, but it rhymes with fiber optic. Don't do fiber optic. Their customer service has been terrible for me and buddies from my same school. If I had the option, I definitely would have gone with Q Optics. Another one here by Setu. She says, I've researched and tried all of the different brands of loops, and Q Optics are the best loops, hands down. I got the prismatic and have noticed a huge difference in my work and posture. I like what Nick Hill did here. He said, a few classmates and I met the Oroscoptic, Surgitel, Designs for Vision, and Q Optics rep for lunch, each one on a separate day. Good call. That would have been bad to just invite them all for a big rumble. He says, I liked the Q Optics product the most lightweight, great design, no need for side shields since the frames are OSHA compliant, amazing customer service, and optical quality works well for me. I purchased the 3.5x non-prismatic. Okay, last review. Laura said, I have Q Optics Prismatic 4.0 and they are the best investment I've made in dental school. This was a post on a dental student Facebook page. And so there's a lot of like, oh, my school didn't offer Q Optics. And then there's people saying, just buy them anyways. Like this is 100% worth it. You're using these every single day. It's your neck, it's your back, it's the quality of your work. It's worth the investment no matter what, whether you're a dental student, whether you're a new dentist, whether you're an established dentist. These are just fantastic loops. Check them out at qoptics.com. Email sales@qoptics.com with the promo code SP19 for a discount on your loops and light combo. Okay, so it takes a year. I guess what did that finally look like at a year? I mean, you grew the practice. I think you sent me a text. Am I okay to share this text? This
Yeah,
is the text after the
whatever.
first year.
Sure.
You said it was about what you'd paid in taxes versus what you'd made as an associate. Do you remember what you'd sent me?
I just remember saying I paid more in taxes this year than I made as an associate.
Yeah. And I love that because it just shows the contrast between, I mean, here you are, like you've already admitted in this call. It's not like you're some implantologist, super GP who's doing all this other crazy stuff. Bread and butter dentistry, taking care of your patients, a good volume of patient flow, but not in a backwater town. It's like, it's not like you're in some crazy major metro or anything like that. It's just good people in the middle of nowhere, and they need their teeth taken care of, and you're doing that for them.
Yeah. And honestly, man, like I feel like, well, yeah, I'm not a special dentist. Like seriously, I just cannot express that enough. Like I feel like I do a good job. Like I do. Like I feel like people are happy. You make them happy, and it's really. But people don't know how good you are. They don't. They have no clue how good your dentistry is. They know if you're nice to them, and they know if you're going to hurt them. You know what I'm saying? And if you do what they want, if they say I got this tooth that hurts, and you get them out of pain, and you're nice to them, they come back. They're happy.
Right.
They don't care if you section it a certain way or if you end up taking away a little buccal plate or something like that. Like they don't know. They don't know what their fillings look like. You're the one who has to tell them, and you have to show them. So literally, I feel like as long as you're nice and you're happy and you really try to express to them and you value their concerns, like people are going to come back. They don't care how good your dental anatomy of your occlusals are. You know what I'm saying?
Right. They don't care if you're posting Instagram pictures of the details of their teeth because it just your anatomy looks amazing.
Exactly.
So at that point when you're paying more taxes, that's after your first year. You paid more in taxes than you made as an associate.
Well, what happened was it's crazy because my accountant, so I'd never had an accountant in my life before. So this is all new, but I got an accountant and he's awesome. But he saw how fast we were producing and he was like, dude, you're going to end up collecting 1.5 or something like that this year. And you don't have that many bills, and your office is so lean, like the overhead, I think our overhead is somewhere low 40s. So he's like, you're going to have so much money. You're going to have to pay so much in taxes. He was stressing out. He was like, you got to, so
he was worried about your estimated taxes, like your estimated quarterly payments. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I was paying every quarter. I was writing a check for $60,000 for taxes. Wow. So my first year I put in $240,000 in taxes. And my first year as an associate, I think I made $225 or something like that. So I was just like, holy crap, I'm paying so much money in taxes. This is insane. And so I ended up getting a financial advisor and all this kind of stuff. And I ended up not have to pay that much in taxes. I think I actually ended up paying half of that because I ended up making, this is all kind of details, but I ended up putting together profit sharing. I maxed out 401k for me and my wife. I ended up making it's called a cash balance plan. It's basically like a pension plan.
Okay.
And then I ended up paying, I ended up giving, we do tithing, through the church and everything. And so I ended up giving away some money. And so I ended up only owing half of what I paid in, but yeah.
Well, in that first year,
refund check.
Oh yeah, no, that's a phenomenal refund check.
Yeah. My refund check this year, I ended up, they gave me a refund check of like $110,000, something like that. Yeah. It was insane.
Yeah.
Insane. Like, and this stuff is so crazy because one, I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be a dentist. My dad told me I should be a plumber. Literally. He was like, I hated high school. And he was like, and I was about to go to BYU. And he was like, why are you going to BYU? Like it's obviously he went to BYU. It's a great school, all that kind of stuff. And he was like, he just knows me as a person that I hated school. And so he was like, why don't you just go? You can make a lot of money as a plumber. You can do whatever you want. You can live anywhere, all of these different things. He was just trying to help me out. Not that he thought I was dumb. He just knew I hated school. And so then I ended up becoming this dentist, and which he can't believe. And then I ended up telling him that I was going to buy this practice a year out of dental school. And he was like, what are you doing? Like, you don't know what you're doing. And two, you're about to take $1 million in debt. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm going to do it, Dad.
I heard it on a podcast.
Yeah, I heard it on a podcast. Exactly. I heard it Richard told me to do it, so I'm doing it.
That's awesome.
But I grew up seriously, man. Like I was the cheapest kid. I'm fourth out of 5 kids. My parents didn't help me with school. I didn't come from money. Like we were fine. We were a middle class family, but like I never had money. Like only if I worked, if I had money, it was because I went to work or something like that. And so like if I ever went out to eat, I'd never buy soda because it was $2.
Too much.
I never, like at Taco Bell, I remember having this conversation with you before, but like I love Taco Bell. And I would not put sour cream on my tacos because it was like an extra 60 cents. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the kind of kid that I grew up as. And I've been that way until literally I graduated down school. Like until I was 31, I've always had that mentality. And so now it's like when I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, even just in taxes, it's just like it's hard to even fathom. Like it's money that I never, ever, ever would dream about. This is just incredible. It's insane. It's hard to comprehend, to be honest.
It's funny that you tell the story that your dad was supportive of you not going to college, because my dad actually had the exact same conversation with me of, he's like, hey, Richard, if you want to go to trade school, like, he's like, I know you like making stuff with like your hands and like minute stuff. So if you want to be like a jeweler or something like that, like,
all right,
I support you. Like, you don't have to go to college just because we went to college. Had that exact same conversation with my parents because they knew how bad of a student I was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, aren't you ADD?
Oh yeah, totally ADD.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you're so smart, man, but it seems like you just have a hard time focusing and staying in one thing. That's why I feel like you spread yourself out so thin. It seems like you're so busy.
Yeah. No, but at the same time, both of us, when we kind of figure out what we want, we can buckle down and get something done. And it might be painful and it might look messy and it might require all-nighters. There was a lot of all-nighters between undergrad, dental school, residency. I needed pressure and deadlines to focus me. And then like the excitement of that thing could get me through it. But
okay. Well,
so enough about that, but back to your practice situation. What did you end up changing? You said, I'm going to leave everything alone for 6 months. It's nice to just let the practice ride. I got to pay my bills. I want to keep the team on board. Was there anything that you immediately identified as, hey, here's some low hanging fruit. We could change this. We could make this better.
I added lunch because I knew that we were busy enough that we could fill it. And I'm very much the mindset, same day dentistry. You never know if a patient, no matter how enthusiastic they are when you first meet them, you don't know if they're coming back. And things just happen. You know what I'm saying? Like a patient can't cancel if they're already there, and so many patients cancel just because something happens with them. And maybe they still want to get that hygiene done, or they still want to get that crown or whatever. But if that day something happens and they can't come, they're not coming, no matter what you do, And I mean, I love Sandy Purdue. I love I love the podcast that you guys have done, but you can't force a patient to come back.
Right.
But if they're already there, they're in your chair and they're already saying yes and they want it. So it's like, let's do it. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, honestly, no matter, and my staff, I feel like sometimes I drive them crazy.
Sure.
That's the main reason, is because I always say yes, always. So if somebody's like, this tooth is hurting me, it doesn't matter how busy we are. It doesn't matter if we don't have a chair for them. It doesn't matter if we have 4 patients waiting already. We're doing it, and my staff just has accepted it now. Where the seller, he wasn't that way. Like if somebody came in for an emergency exam, they'd almost always give them antibiotic and they come back next week or something. Patients don't like that. If you can pull the tooth right then, they're so happy. And not only are they happy, but they advertise for you. Like I don't advertise. Like I don't do this. Like George talks about $200,000 in season 6 about like all this marketing and stuff like that. I'm just like, oh my gosh, you could take $200,000 and put that in the stock market and literally just retire off of your marketing budget. That's just insane to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I'm a dentist, not because I love dentistry, but because you can work 4 days a week and you can make crazy money. Seriously. Yeah. And then you can be an owner. You can do what you want and you can do it the way you want. Like honestly, like when I listen to George, I'm just he's awesome. George is so awesome, but I'm just like, there's no way I'd ever be able to, I feel like work with him.
Yeah. No, it takes a certain level of faith in the process to put $200K into marketing.
Yeah, that's scary.
some of that's failed and some of that's, you
But he
try it.
doesn't care. But he doesn't care because he's like, if it works, work. If it works, it works. Great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I love that mentality. That's awesome. But for me, I don't want to do that. I'd rather
Well, and
take
you
that
don't have
200,000.
to. I mean, here's the thing is if you're at capacity, it doesn't make any sense to spend money in marketing. So, I mean, you've got a very busy practice. You knew that you had the demand. You added a little bit of capacity. You added an hour a day of doctor time, and then you added capacity by same day treatment, and you're good. So unless you want to, I don't know if you know how many insurances you're taking now and want to
So
drop
we're in
them.
network with Delta and Blue Cross, and then Medicaid. I've done Medicaid sometimes. It just depends. Like during COVID, when during the whole 2 months that hygiene, I don't like the whole recall and everything.
Oh yeah.
It was this last September, October. I'll take Medicaid during those times. Just basically just to get somebody in the chair. I don't like telling my staff. That's another thing I told my staff. I always, if they're willing to work, I'm going to pay them to be there. And I don't really ever want them to feel like if we're not busy enough, I'm going to tell them to go home all the time. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I pay them whether I have a patient or not. So
Totally.
I'd rather have anybody in the chair no matter what we're doing. I don't care what we're doing as long as we're busy. And that's the other thing is I don't schedule for, I don't only put crowns in certain times. I don't do any special scheduling. As long as I'm really busy, as long as I'm busy and my hands are working, I know I'm making money.
Right.
And that's my mentality. Whether I'm doing fillings or extractions or seeing kids, I don't care.
Right.
It's really not for me. I try to make it as simple as possible for my staff. And as long as that's really in my office manager, she gets mad. Like if I'm not busy, I'm sitting there. I feel like she always feels like I'm hovering over her. So she knows the only time I'm not happy is if I'm not busy.
Right. That's a great natural incentive for her to make sure that the schedule's getting filled because then
that's the only thing that she ever worries about is if we're not busy. I can just feel her anxiety because she knows that I'm not happy if we're not busy. So otherwise it's fine.
So it sounds like clinically, even though you were a fairly new grad, you were up to speed. By the time you got into this office, do you feel like you had still a lot of clinical growth to go, or do you feel like you were pretty much good to go?
Bread and butter, I was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do partials and dentures and crowns and fillings. Seriously, I only do, I've restored maybe 10 implants since I've graduated. I never restored a single implant in dental school. Our implant knowledge is almost zilch. And so implants really hasn't given me a ton, but if a patient has one already, or if they really ask for one, everybody comes in and they're like, oh, I want implants. But then once you tell them how much it costs, I've never really where I'm at, people just can't afford that. Because they already have 5 teeth they're missing, or it's just not realistic for my patient population. Or at least I haven't figured out how to do it.
Totally.
And so most of these people, they just want to be out of pain. They want to be able to smile and they want to be able to be out of pain, and they don't have good hygiene. Most people are missing multiple teeth where I live.
Yeah.
It's not a big city kind of place. So, and people are okay with it. Totally. They're happy. Yeah. It's just different mentality.
There's a book, Everything is Marketing by Dr. Fred Joyal. And he talks about how technically everything we do in dentistry is optional. Because there's people who don't have teeth and they're still alive. It's not like cardiac surgery where if this procedure doesn't get done, this patient's going to die on the table. And sure. having teeth is optional. Having teeth is a privilege. You got to be able to take care of them. So there's nothing wrong with that. So clinically, you're ready to go. How about leadership wise? What have you learned and grown as a leader in the last year and a half, 2 years since you've been in practice ownership?
So again, I got really lucky that the practice is already doing well. I think that's another thing. I'd be terrified of doing a startup because I don't feel like my systems are that good. You guys always talk about systems, and my systems are, as long as we're busy and as long as we're collecting, I don't care. Honestly, my staff they've all been there for so long and they're all really nice. So I don't have to really worry about them goofing off or I don't tell them not to be on their cell phone. That's one. Because the last practice, my associateship, they they were not supposed to be on their cell phone, but they would literally just go sit in the bathroom and hide for 10 minutes and be on their cell phone,
Hmm.
you know? And it's just, I don't want to micromanage people.
Right.
Like I feel like we're here to work, and as long as everything's getting done and we're collecting and everybody's happy and patients are happy, I don't care. It's all working out. I mean, I'd
So,
rather them just run themselves. I really.
and that's awesome. I mean, this is kind of proving I wanted to have you on the show because you're proving the hypothesis of shared practices, which is practice ownership via acquisitions is what we've been preaching for a long time, because the business is in place, the patients are in place, the team's in place. And if you can come in and replicate what's being done and maybe just tweak a few little things and do a few things better, you can live a really good life and be financially free and make money and contribute in meaningful ways. Have a team that you enjoy and that you have control over, more than as an associate at the mercy of another office, another team. During COVID, a lot of associates lost their jobs.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, yeah. Another thing that I've realized is that, at least in North Carolina, I don't know what it's like everywhere else, especially rural North Carolina. I feel like if you open up shop, you're going to be okay. Like, I really believe that you could literally be anywhere in North Carolina. And if you don't have patients, accept a bunch of insurances, people will come. I really don't even feel like you even have to advertise. And that's what I would do. If I didn't have patients, I would just get in more in network with more insurances until people show up. And then once we max out, I'll start cutting some, accept Medicaid. It's okay to accept Medicaid. If you get fast and you know what you're doing, you can make a lot of money. It's just hard work. You know what I'm saying? If you're willing to work, you can make a lot of money. You just got to put it in. Even if you're making less on each patient, that's okay. If you see 2 patients, but you're doing a ton of stuff on them, great.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I really don't feel like it's not hard to not fail as a dentist. It's hard to fail as a dentist, at least in North Carolina. It is, yeah, it's hard to be super successful, make tons and tons and tons. But it's really hard to fail. Like, the margins are so high. Like, what other business can you go right into it in day one? I mean, I make every filling I do, every crown I do, every extraction I do. I mean, I'm making 60%, 55% on every dollar that comes in. You know what I'm saying? That's just, the margins are crazy. So I can literally do a lot of things wrong and still be fine.
And not that we want to do a lot of things wrong, but
no, I'm not, that's not what I mean. I'm not like on patients, but I mean, like, if I was really bad at managing my business or something like that, you can fail a lot. As long as you're producing, it's all going to be covered.
Well, and like you said, you're taking care of your patients, you're doing good work. You've got a good team. You're in a great location in terms of demographics and competition. So it's another example of, some people say rural versus urban, which is harder. I think for you and what you're looking for in a practice, it sounds like rural is really nice because it just eliminates a lot of the need to market. It eliminates the stress and the pressure and the competition that maybe come with a really urban, nice practice in the bougie neighborhood with a bunch of other dentists right down the street.
Yeah. I don't market. I don't think about my practice. I don't worry about my practice. I don't work outside of work. I literally leave on Thursday at 5:00. And I don't think about work until Monday morning, and that's the way I want it though. I don't enjoy, like, I don't want multi-practice. Like, I've thought about it a lot. I've thought about, okay, maybe I'll do better and it'll be okay. But then I think about, I have to put systems in and I have to do all this stuff. And I just don't want to do that stuff. For me, it's enough is enough. Like, I'm making fine money. It's great. And if I'm making an extra $100,000, it's not going to make me happier.
No,
you know what I'm saying, I'd rather just have a lifestyle that I enjoy.
I love that you know that about yourself too, because I agree. I think a lot of times, a solo dentist in a practice that they own with good overhead that's successful, like, you kind of can't beat that. As long as you don't mind doing clinical dentistry, as long as you like doing clinical dentistry, and can sustain it, and you're doing it at a sustainable pace, like, what's wrong with that? That's kind of the best gig around, where you get to, be the boss. You get to build up your team and get to know them over a long period of time. You get to take care of patients and see them grow up. There's so many amazing things about it. And practice ownership is still on the table. And I think that's the thing that people who don't have 175K of student loans, they've got 500, they've got 600, they've got 700. They assume that this isn't possible and they wouldn't want to take on that extra million of debt. But in fact, I think from your situation, either way, they're going to have the student loans. So why not take home double or more as an owner than be an associate somewhere else?
Yeah. So my first year, again, as associate, I was making somewhere around 225, somewhere around there. And I'd probably max out. I would have to be killing it. 250 is probably the most I ever could have made. And that would have been really, really hard. My first year in ownership, if you include the equity that you have in your practice, I paid off $100,000 of equity my first year, which is money in my pocket. I own something worth $1 million. And not only that, but honestly, it's probably 1.2 or something higher.
Right.
It's somewhere around 700. Like everything that, like all my 401k and pension plan and all that kind of stuff, and the taxes you pay for personal income, like I probably make 700 now, something like that. I don't even know my exact number, but it doesn't really matter. I just know that all my bills are paid. I'm making plenty of money. I don't really worry about it. I just do the dentistry and the money comes in. It's okay. But it's literally like 3 times what I was making as an associate, and I don't really work any harder. If anything, I enjoy my life more because I can do what I want. I can buy whatever supplies I want. I can see whatever patients I want. I can do whatever procedures I want. And if I don't like something, my staff listens to me. As an associate, my staff didn't give a crap what I said. Literally, if I ever wanted to change something, they would literally walk up, they'd get up, they'd go ask the office manager, and then the office manager would say, yeah, we can't do that. They didn't care. I was not the boss. I was just another employee. I was equal to all of them. My assistants, they saw me as equals, and that it's just different. I wasn't okay with that. I like being able to, if I want to change something or not do something, I'd rather not have to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, and that the kind of the lifestyle aspect of it, the control, the ability to practice how you want to practice, and ultimately, sometimes it has to be fire who needs to be fired rather than sticking it out with a difficult team member who doesn't want to be there and you don't want them to be there, but they have to have the job to pay the bills. So
I've also been really lucky that I went in a situation where I didn't have to change anything and it was already successful. And that was another thing that George really helped me realize in the beginning was if you buy a practice that's already doing well and you don't mess it up, it'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for that knowledge going into it.
Perfect.
The other thing also George evaluated my practice before. I sent it to him. He didn't know who I was, but this is still when he was like going over practices. If you emailed him, I don't think he does that anymore, but
well, and even when you emailed him, it might not have been him. It might've been Aaron or Tyler or Clay. Cause there was a period of time very quickly after he started doing that for people where he brought on our 3 student interns to evaluate practices in his name on his behalf. So
really?
That might not have been George who evaluated it.
Okay. I don't know. I'm not sure. It came from George's email. That's all I know.
Yeah, that's what would happen is people would send it to his email and then Aaron was checking his emails and he would do the evaluation.
Okay. That's cool. Well, I don't know. All I know is that he said it was, and George, whoever it was, said it was a good practice and they said it cash flow is great. And I don't know. I should have pulled up that email. I should have read it. I'm sure I still have it, but
you got the green light. Yeah.
Yeah. He said it was okay. He did have some concerns or whatever, but I basically just was like, I just kind of ignored him.
Yeah. No. And we're getting to the point now where we have someone in-house that does evaluations for people. So that's something that we knew for a long time in shared practices that we should, but we just didn't have that system set up. We didn't have someone on board who could help evaluate practices for people. So we definitely have that service that's still available. If you're serious and ready, if someone's listening to this and like, okay, crap, I need help looking at a practice, we can help you with that. And just reach out, shoot us an email. It will not be George evaluating the practice. He definitely does not do that anymore. So,
cool though. I was just going to say, and I know that you talk about multi-practice and I know George and they totally changed their mindset of like, instead of going lean and mean, getting these, groups and stuff like that. And I see the value in that. That's awesome. But for me, I really feel, if I just keep doing what I'm doing, my practice will be paid off in 7 years. If I don't change anything, my practice will be paid off 7 years. And then, I mean, my house is pretty much paid off already. My student loans I paid off after my first year.
Nice.
Like I will have no debt by the time I'm 40, which is only 6 years away. I'll pretty much have no debt, and I'll have that easily multiple millions of dollars. And so it's like, if I don't want to work anymore, even if I put an associate in and I only make $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year, that's still a ton of money if you don't have any debt. Like I again, like right now, I pay $11,000 a month in my practice loan. And so
once that loan's gone,
that's $11,000 a month. Who can't live on $11,000 a month? You know what I'm saying?
with a paid off house and no loans.
Yeah, with no debt. Dentists and doctors that have to work into their 60s and they own a practice. I'm just like, why? What have you been doing for the last 30 years?
Right.
I just don't feel like it's not that hard. It's hard to fail. Again, it's hard to fail as a dentist because the margins are so high.
I think one of my team members was asking me, 6 months ago, like, oh, are you going to get a boat and all this other stuff? I was like, we have very middle class dreams. Like, we are not, like, I still drive a 2007 Corolla right now.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and we're in a middle class neighborhood, beautiful home, beautiful neighborhood. I love the people that we're with, but not like a custom home or any of these things. And you can afford all those things if you're in a practice like the one that you're in. You can choose to do that, or you can get aggressive and pay down loans. And actually, you can probably do both. You can probably pay off a beautiful custom home and pay off all your debt and live on $11,000 for the rest of your life if you wanted to.
Well, and that's what for me, I feel like you don't have a hard time filling your time. Like for me, I work 4 days a week, and if I quit working, it's not that I'm not willing to quit. It's that I don't know what I would do with myself. That's what I'm trying to figure out now. My problem now. So beforehand, it was like, okay, get a practice, go finish dental school, become a dentist, go to college, do good in high school. Like there was always some goal, but now it's like, I feel like you've given me this problem, and shared practice has helped me get in this problem, is that I don't know what's next. And I don't want more and more money. I don't want more and more practice and more stress. Now I have it's like I just have free time and I'm not sure what to do with it yet. So
maybe I can help you with that. My next podcast is going to be called Dentist Doing Good. And I want to feature and highlight dentists who have charitable causes baked into their practice, whether it's in their practice or outside their practice. So that would be my next challenge, is come up with something that you can be passionate about and could be a driver for you outside of the practice. And then it sometimes can circle back and make everything you're doing in the practice have more meaning. And if you get your team involved and it's something that they're part of, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Or you can play more hockey.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I don't know. And I got 3 kids, so it's like, I'm busy enough, but I just feel like when I don't have to work anymore, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll find another career, or find something else. I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure you will. And I've also learned about myself that I don't do well when I have an excess of free time. Like,
okay,
when in college and in dental school, when I would have like 3 days off, or before we had kids, but even having kids, like I need something to work on, because otherwise I just waste my time in the stupidest things. And if I don't have like a thing that I care about and I'm passionate about, then I look at my clock and it's 2 a.m. and I'm playing some phone game or, some video game. And like, that's just me. So anyways, it's a good problem to have. Having more money and time than you know what to do with is a great problem to have.
And that's definitely not a problem that I ever imagined. Never, ever, ever imagined having that problem. So thank you, Richard. Seriously.
You're welcome.
You gave me that problem.
Thanks, man.
Well, thank you.
Well, cool. Well, any advice if someone is on the fence and is scared of practice ownership, what would you tell them?
I mean, of course, don't jump into anything, but again, it's hard to fail as a dentist as long as you're not buying some.
If you buy right.
Yeah, if you buy right. yeah, if you buy a practice that you know you can come in and you can take over, and I just, even if you're failing as a dentist, I still think you're going to make $100,000.
Right.
You know, $100,000 to most people is great.
Right.
But for me, if I only made $100,000 in my practice right now, you'd have to be an idiot to make $100,000 in my practice. I could take a dental student and put him in my practice, and he could easily make $100,000. I don't know how it would even be possible to make that little. Literally, I mean, you see, I could literally just pull teeth and make $100,000. I don't know. So yeah, so going back to it, buying the right practices is extremely important. Don't rush into it. Don't buy the first one. And I think as long as I'm still a big believer on, if it's got high cash flow and you can reproduce the same dentistry that last dentist going out was doing, you're going to be fine.
That's awesome.
Unless you're a jerk or something.
Unless you're a jerk. Don't be a jerk.
Patients will like you as long as you're nice to them. Try not to hurt them.
And your team. I mean, yeah. You got to walk in and just be a little bit nicer than the last guy, and everybody loves you.
Well, honestly, man, going back, I know you're about to finish, but I redid a bunch of stuff for him. And then also, if a patient, I will tell them up front. If any patient ever says, like they're worried about this working, or if it doesn't work, like I refund patients money all the time. It's like, if this crown, if you're not happy with it, I'll redo it, for free. Like seriously, whatever to make the patient happy. It doesn't cost me a whole lot to redo it. And a lot of times the lab will redo it for free, or if a partial doesn't fit and they don't like it at the end, I'll refund them the money. I don't care. It costs me $200 to make the partial. And if I have to remake 1 out of 50, it's as long as you're doing okay work, like just make people happy. Like we ended up, I know you guys like Swell. And at the time I ended up getting this company, a different company than Swell, but they basically do the same thing. And we went from like, what?
Who was it?
I think they're Weave.
Weave? Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. My office manager was like, let's try this Weave. Because I wanted to get some Google reviews, because we literally had like 3 and they were all bad right when I started. And I didn't change the name. So I couldn't get rid of those Google reviews. So I was like, well, let's just get a bunch of good ones. It'll basically just wash out the bad ones. And so now 2 years later, we're almost about to hit 200 Google reviews. And we don't ask for Google, like literally the software, and Swell, I'm sure does the same thing. Yeah. They do everything for you, and you just get Google reviews like all the time. And so as long as people are happy, they'll review you good or review you well. And that made a huge difference, huge difference, and just, yeah, we don't advertise. So people, it's all word of mouth, and people all the time come in. Oh, you did my sister. You pulled my sister's tooth. You pulled my grandma's tooth, and it didn't hurt. So they come in and I pull their teeth. It's funny to me how much people are excited to get their teeth out. But
so you say that we do different dentistry, but in the end, like I'm about to go into, and I can't talk fully about it, but a lot of extractions here in my future. So I might be calling you. So
no way, man. I guarantee you're better dentist than me. I don't even know what you do with a 3D printer. Like, I don't know what a 3D printer does.
I've got it with a light in it as a prop here in the background, but you can definitely do a lot more than that. But this has been fun. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, for sure. No, I thank you, man. Seriously. Like, you changed my life big time, multiple times.
Happy to help, man. This is, and you've changed mine. So thank you. Let's wrap it up. If someone wanted to reach out to you and was interested in, like, I don't know, are you comfortable putting your email out there, or what would be the best way for someone to reach you? I'm already on the Shared Practices Facebook group. Okay. I'm just a member. I know there's like 4,000 of you, but I'm already on there. Just look for Scott Smith on the Facebook group. Sure. I mean, I can give you my email. I don't care. I mean, honestly, anybody can contact me, but I really don't feel like I'm special in any way. Like, I've basically just been doing what you guys have already been saying. I love it. Okay. What's your email then? It's Scott STS1. So it's SCOTTSTS1 @gmail.com. Okay, cool. Well, this has been a blast. This is like the funnest I get to have on a podcast. It's just like hanging out with old friends and talking about dentistry. And my wife makes fun of me because I don't have any friends in Indianapolis, and so I have to podcast to hang out with friends. So this was a lot of fun. Thanks, man. Well, Richard, you're like the most famous person I know. So not true. Dental podcast famous is not a thing. So
Still a lot more famous than anybody else I know.
Awesome, dude. Hey, thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Hey, we'll talk to you all next time on the Shared Practices podcast.